Now, scientific studies have shown that the music that we listen to during our adolescence and our 20s has a greater lasting impact on us than anything we listen to later on in life. And I'm going to say that the same applies for the music that we produced during that time. And for me, I grew up during the golden age of hip hop, a production style that was predominantly based around sampling, a technique where producers would record or sample part of an old record, chop it up in a sampler, and then rearrange said chops over the top of a beat to create a new piece of music. So when I heard about this plugin, ReMIDI 2 by Songwish, which is a plugin that allows you to recreate that sample chopping workflow only with MIDI instead of audio, I was both intrigued, excited, and a little bit confused as to what that entailed. But is it any good? Well, I'll answer that question in a little bit, but after an hour or so of playing about with it, I took this. Beethoven's Violin Sonata No. 9. And turned it into this. The ReMIDI 2 is on sale right now at Plugin Boutique. If you want to support me and my channel, hit on the link in the description below. It won't cost you anything extra, and it will help me create more content like this if this is the kind of thing you're into. So let me begin by showing you how this plugin works. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Let me show you how I use this plugin, because this is actually the second time that I'm recording this. The first time I went through every little function and I actually ended up confusing myself with my own explanation. So if you do want a full explanation as to how this works, go to Songwish's YouTube page. However, I will say that even the developer's explanation as to how this thing works is equally as confusing as mine was. But don't let that put you off, because I feel like the way that I'm using it is a simple way of using it. And I do feel like I am getting a lot out of the plugin, even if I'm not fully understanding everything that it's capable of. So in the right-hand section here, we can select our MIDI files. They're all broken up into folders. So double click on Baroque. We can see we have a whole ton in here. The same with classical. Folk, hymn, jazz, march, a whole lot to choose from. And all these MIDI files are all in the public domain, which means they're all copyright free. So we can use them in our own productions however we choose to. So as you can see, there's a lot more than just Beethoven in here. But the reason I focused in on Beethoven is that I do have a bit of an affinity with the man. So a couple of years ago, I performed at this concert with a bunch of classical musicians, in which we used his ideas and his influences to come up with an original concert in dedication to the man. So let me go into classical. And we can just choose a MIDI file by double clicking on it. And then if I press a key on my keyboard, it will loop around a 4-beat section of that MIDI file. We can see that it's 4 beats by this size number here. So if I press the next key, it will play the next 4 beats. And we can switch the tempo up and down using this button here. And we can transpose it up or down using the transpose section. right now the sound is coming out of the internal engine, which isn't great. If we click on this cog button here, turn internal sound off, we can then route the MIDI out of the plugin and into whatever plugin we want. So in Cubase, you can see I have my MIDI input coming from ReMIDI 2. And I'm just routing it into this string ensemble from UVI. And you can see we can now play these MIDI slices in the same way that we would do if we were sampling audio. And to come up with the chords in my track, this is the exact technique that I used. So for the chords, you can see I put the size down to 2, the tempo down to 0.25, and along the bottom you can see the MIDI that I played. To come up with the bass line, what I did was click on this filter section and just remove tracks 1 and track 2, so that I was just left with the bottom note or notes of each slice. Now for the bass line, I'm playing the exact same pattern, playing the exact same chords, only this time I went to filter and I filtered out 1 and 2, so I was just left with 3, and then played that through Cubase's Apache SX, which is an arpeggiator, and ended up with this. And to come up with the melody, same kind of thing. Now for the melody, you can see that I'm playing different slices of the MIDI, but it is still the same violin sonata number 9 file. And if we put all that together, we get this. Now, I know for sure there's going to be a few people out there who might be thinking, why would you want to take music that's already been written instead of coming up with something on your own? To which I would say, look into the music of the Beatles, Elvis Presley, Simon Garfunkel, Queen. Now, all of these songwriting legends have all at some point borrowed, stolen, or taken inspiration from some of these composers. In fact, if you look at Bach or Beethoven, they themselves even took music that was written before them and interpreted it into their own compositions to either pay homage to or just as a little nod to some of their inspirations. So the question isn't really why should you be doing this? I think the question is more, why shouldn't you be doing this? So that's a Remedy 2 by Songwish. And yes, even though I do feel like there are still a few little creases that need to be ironed out within the plugin, still 100% the way it stands is definitely going to become part of my everyday workflow. Like this thing just really appeals to the way that I make music, to my workflow. I really like the concept. Not seen anything like it before, but don't take my word for it. Go check it out. Hit that link in the description below. Make your own mind up. But anyway, that's it for now. I've been Craig Lopez. This has been Tutorialism. Now go make some music. Peace.